Hey everyone, it's Jenny at JC Cards. Today I have a 2-for-1 card video to share with you. I featured the Mandala maker from Altenew for my first card, which is the one that I'm showing here. And I had lots of bits left over, so I decided to make another card with those bits in it as shaker pieces. And I'm going to show you how I made both of those cards today. They both feature heat embossing on the tiny dies that make up the mandala pieces. I'm just giving you a quick look at this mandala maker set from Altenew. You can see there's a stamp set, so you can heat emboss stamped images or ink up those images. And you can also die cut out the images as well, which is what I'm going to be doing today. Now the main stamp set comes with these large circles, which they look big, but they've actually only got tiny dots that stamp down onto the cardstock. And they're just used as a guide to show you exactly where you can put your pieces to get a symmetrical looking mandala. So I'm going to ink it up with some really pale ink. It doesn't really matter too much because I'm using the die cut pieces here, but if you were using the stamped parts of the stamp set, then you want to use pale ink. And I'm going to ink up each concentric circle with this pale ink and then stamp it down onto my cardstock. I'm using Wow Embossing white cardstock here. And you can line up these circles really easily using that dot in the center. You just place it over the top and then line up that top dot. I'm going to use all the layers in my card today, but you can choose whatever way you want to create your mandala. You might just want to use the outer circle, for example. Now to create my die cut pieces, I'm first going to heat emboss all of my cardstock and then subsequently die cut it. So I'm going to swipe my Wow Embossing ink all over this panel of Wow Embossing cardstock. And then I've chosen my first colour. I'm going to be using 5 embossing powders today. This first one is Iced Silver. It's a really pretty baby blue, kind of pale blue with lots of circular holographic pieces in it. And I'm just going to scatter that over half of this panel of cardstock, and then on the other half I'm going to start using some of these summer scoops. This is the new trio from Wow that was released recently. Has 3 fabulous colours. They're all gorgeous kind of pale pastel colours. There's a pink, there's an orange, there's a yellow, and I'm going to create all of my own custom glitter cardstock using those. And then I also use sparkling sand, which you can just see on the left. I heat embossed off camera, and sparkling sand is from the Dockside trio. I'm going to use just the circular dies from this set today. I'm going to use those 4 largest, and then I'm going to use 2 of the smaller ones, and I'm just going to pull them off, and these cut in sets of 4. I didn't know how many I was going to need for my mandala, so I'm going to die cut as many as each of these panels will let me. And if of course you need extras, you can always go back, add a little bit more heat embossing to another piece of cardstock and then die cut more. I ended up with lots of extras, as you see. But I like to cut up my cardstock small so I can just run it through this little die cutting machine. This is the Mini Blossom from Altenew, just so that I can get lots and lots of pieces done quite quickly. And then I've sorted them out into size and colour order, just so I know what I've got to play with to create my mandala. Now I've got my panel of cardstock that I stamped my dots onto. It's quite hard to see on the camera. And then I'm using a glue pen. This is a glue pen from Altenew, and a jewel picker to pick up all of my heat embossed pieces to create my mandala. This is super sped up. I wish it had been this quick to create, but it's really easy and it's really fun. I didn't have much of a plan in mind. I was using that inner sleeve from the stamp set to inspire me, but I did make it quite different in the end, and then just played around with picking up some of those heat embossed pieces and putting them down, adding the glue, picking them up, putting them down until I had a pattern that I was happy with. But you can see you can use the hearts, you can use those kind of diamond shapes, the circles, all sorts, and you could even use stamp sets as well with this stamp set. So you could have, flowers all going around the edge. So I didn't get too fancy here, but there's plenty you could do with this. And you could, of course, heat emboss the stamped images as well if you wanted to. Once I was done, I mounted it onto a £110 white note card. And then for my sentiment, I'm just going to keep this really simple. I'm using this Better Together 2 stamp set from Altenew, and I'm going to place it in my mini Misty because I really don't want to mess this up. I'm going to stamp it directly onto that cardstock, and I've already mounted onto my note card, so I'm going to make sure that I don't get any smudging, and then I'm going to stamp it down in black Obsidian ink. This says, "I support you." I really like the sentiments, especially for the moment, from this stamp set. And that finishes my first card. Now for my second one, you saw all those pieces that I had left over, lots and lots and lots of little sparkly heat embossed pieces left. So I'm going to create a shaker using this Fine Frames square die from Altenew. I've grabbed another panel of Wow Embossing cardstock, and I'm going to die cut that largest square out from the center, closer to the top as I did before, because we're going to stamp a sentiment underneath it. And I run that through my die cutting machine. Now onto the back, because this is a shaker card, I'm going to trim a piece of acetate to just larger than the window, and then adhere it down with some liquid glue. And then I'm going to create a shaker well, because this is a square window, it's super easy. I'm just going to grab some foam tape and place it all over the back of my panel, making sure that the piece round the windows all touch up against each other so there's no way for those pieces to escape. And then I'm going to double up that layer of foam tape just to make sure there's enough depth in that window to add my pieces. Now I didn't heat emboss the backs of my pieces, so I just want to make sure when I add my shaker bits that they're all facing the front of the card and the white backs are facing the back. It sounds a little tedious, it's not too bad actually. You can mostly just drop a bunch in and then flip over any that aren't facing the right way. Or you could of course heat emboss both sides of the cardstock, but these were just leftovers from my mandala, so I didn't do that. And then I removed the backs of the foam tape and popped a panel of white cardstock because I'm keeping this super clean and simple. I didn't even have any background pattern on that backer cardstock. And you can see those pieces shake around in there perfectly. Now once again, I forgot to stamp my sentiment, so I'm going to place the whole shaker into my Misty, and because it's quite thin, it'll still work perfectly well. I'm using the Better Together 2 stamp set once again, stamping down onto the front of that panel with some black Obsidian ink. This is Pigment ink, so just careful not to smear it, because any mistakes at this point will be very noticeable. And you can see I'm glad I used my Misty, so I get a nice clean impression, stamping it down twice and then give it a good shake. And here's a look at both of the cards. Pretty cool. I really enjoyed making these cards, super fun, and such gorgeous colours that all coordinate really well together. I created this video for the Wow Embossing YouTube channel and they let me share it here, so be sure to head on over and check out the other videos that they have on their channel as well as mine. Here's one you might enjoy, and have a wonderful day. Bye!